Our personal story can demand that we play small and stay invisible and quiet. But despite that story, and really in spite of that story, we can also gather up the courage and determination to succeed despite the odds. My guest today, Trina Martin, had to overcome many obstacles to find her authentic path forward. Trina Martin is an author, speaker, technology consultant, and podcaster. She uses her experiences to motivate audiences to overcome adversity, develop self-determination, and discipline. Trina also inspires emerging leaders to pursue their wildest dreams with heart and grit. An accomplished IT professional and member of the U.S. military for 30 years, she has broken barriers and made strides in her career that many said weren't possible. A native of Chicago, Illinois, Trina is the youngest of 4 children, the first in her family to attend college, and due to the lack of support at home, she knew she would have to achieve her own goal. So she enlisted in the U.S. Army and served in the reserves to put herself through school at Alabama A&M University. Both of these choices fueled Trina's desire to succeed and revealed the depth of her resiliency. Naturally skilled at finding the harmony between technology, science, and data, she has led a stellar career in the information technology field. As an intelligence officer in the U.S. Navy, and now as the owner of her technology agency, Trina has pierced the glass ceiling and excelled in positions typically held by men. And today we are going to hear Trina's story. Trina, welcome to Badass Women.
Thank you, Bonnie, for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Oh, it's great having you. And thank you so much for reaching out on LinkedIn and making this great connection, because I think your story is one that will definitely inspire my listeners. So tell us, what has been your personal journey and how have you arrived at where you are today?
Oh, wow. Well, as you read in the bio, I am originally from Chicago. I currently reside in Houston now, but I was born and raised in Chicago. And I am the youngest of 4 children. And that may not seem like anything out of the ordinary, but I have a very large gap between me and my siblings. My sister, who's the oldest, there's 15 years between us. My oldest brother is 13, and then my next brother is 8. So very large gaps.
Mm.
So growing up in Chicago, I was, raised by a single mother, and that mother was very verbally abusive to me, and to the point where every time she spoke to me, I could just feel the venom in her voice.
Was she abusive to all of your siblings as well?
I don't think so. I don't know how it came to be. I do know, as far as her personally, I know she was a very bitter and unhappy woman.
Mm.
And I think by the time I came along, it was just, she was over the top. And of course, by my siblings being so much older, by the time I reached my early teens, everyone was out the house. So it was just me.
Yeah.
So she was very, very verbally abusive to me. And I mean, it was almost like she would pull the things she said from the depths of her bowels. You would say, wow, how can she say that to me? I would cringe. And hearing that every day, hearing your mother tell you that you're ugly, you're lazy, you're not good enough, you're a bad daughter, that started to weigh on me. So I ended up having a very low self-esteem. I was an introvert and a very shy child. And that ended up spinning in the opposite direction, because I know a lot of people who would go through that, they could have taken one or two paths. So instead of me taking the path of saying, well, I'm going to rebel and just be this person that's not good in the world, I took it and I ended up becoming a type A, very driven to succeed person.
Yeah, so you took the opposite, like, I'm going to prove different.
Yes. And you know what? And it's funny you say that, because all my life, that's what I would tell myself.
Was that your driving force? I'm going to show you.
Yes, that was my drive.
Mm.
My driving force was, one, I'm going to show you. Two, I want to leave this place and leave this woman, and I'm never going to look back, and I'm never going to end up like her. So that was my driver. I was like, I'm going to show you, and I'm never going to be like you, and I'm going to get away from you. So
Well, I
those were my top
suppose,
things.
even if it's like a negative force, if it motivates you to be successful, to change and move your life forward, then I guess in the end it doesn't matter what that motivating force is.
Exactly. And and I'm thankful for that point of my life, because it pushed me to greater things. But then as I got older and as I went through life, because of that, yes, I excelled in all the things: school, work, military, all those things. But then on the inside, I was still that little girl who wanted love and support. So I ended up finding that low self-esteem and not knowing my worth showed up in relationships with men. I would always settle. I would end up with these men who treated me horribly, who I always would say, okay, well, let me do this. He's going to see how good of a person I am and how I love him and how I'll do this. And it was just the opposite. It was, oh, okay, well, I'm going to walk on you because you're a doormat and because you don't know your worth. And this is how I'm going to treat you.
Yeah, and that's not unusual for women who have low esteem, who actually stay even in abusive relationships. We definitely see a pattern there. But how old were you when you joined the military, and what led you to do that? Was that for a scholarship, or did you have other motivation there?
Well, I was in college, so I was actually 19 when I enlisted. I had finished my first year of college, and I realized, because my mother was not emotionally supportive, she was not mentally supportive. I didn't get any love, support, or anything like that, or encouragement at home. So the fact that I even went to college and knew how to apply was, I look back now and I'm in awe, because I had none of that modeled for me. I was the first one ever, and I didn't even have anyone to bounce things off of. And I didn't even have a mother who was saying,
How'd you do
you
it?
could do it. I was pretty smart. I had a lot of friends. I read a lot. Reading was my escape. So I would read a lot, and I just learned. I learned on my own, and I did the best that I could do at the time with what I knew. Looking back now, and of course, I have two teenagers. I know, I'm like, okay, I know the ropes and how to do everything to make their life better. But at the time, and I'm looking back now, and I'm going, wow, it's amazing that I even did that. I mean, I remember going to different states and going on college tours and going by myself, because my mother didn't support me. She didn't know what a college tour was. So I just remember booking tickets and driving to places and doing these things on my own. So
Was
it's
she the slightest bit proud of you
she
for getting in?
never said that. And that was one of the things that really weighed heavily on me. She never said she loved me. She never said she was proud of me. And my mother's deceased now. She died in 2006. But that was never, she never showed me any kind of love. And I talk about this in my book, but looking back now, and now that I'm older and wiser and I kind of recap my life, she was just such a miserable person. And I really think, with me being the youngest, I think she thought that, one, she was going to control my life and keep me under her thumb. And then that would result in me taking care of her and financing her life, which
Mm.
I did none of that.
Yeah,
So
it's
I
kind of
think,
sad, isn't it? If that's what she really wanted, she was getting
yes,
the opposite.
right. And I look back now and I think about how sad, how miserable she was. And I was just like, wow, she must really have been miserable inside. Um, she had been married a couple of times and each guy left her. And I think she just really got bitter. And I just remember the things, how she would speak, during life, like, oh, well, this person has that. And, I don't have that, or I never got that. And, just things she would say that was so negative. It was like nothing
She
was,
sounds like a victim.
yes, yes. It was like she
Yeah.
took this victim mentality. And I even remember in my teenage years how I would, actually point these things out to her. And of course, that was, um, you know, I would get the verbal thrashing of my life for saying something like to her, because she would say I was such a disrespectful, child. How dare I talk to her like this? And I was like, well, to get respect, you have to give respect. Just because I'm your child doesn't mean you talk to me any kind of way and treat me any kind of way, and that's okay. And that's the type of person she was.
Yeah. Wait,
So
so you got into college and then you joined the military?
yes. So getting back to that, so I finished my first year of college, realized that all the loans I was taking out and all the grants, that it was not enough. So I ended up signing up for the Army. And at the time, the Army had this thing, they called it, what did they call it? I think they called it split option. So like 1 year I could go to basic training, return to school, and then that summer I would go and finish up my um, other military training. So that's what I did, because I wanted the GI Bill and all the other things that went along with it. I figured, okay, I could do the reserves, which was 1 weekend a month, the 2 weeks of active duty a year, and then I could get the GI Bill and things like that. So that was my plan. I was going to do this for 4 years to get myself through college. So that's what I did. I joined the military, ended up joining the Army, and it was in 1990. And if you remember back then, Desert Storm was going on. That was at the height of the Saddam Hussein regime. And the job that I had was chemicals. I was a chemical specialist because, again, me being young, naive, the recruiter, sold me some bag of goods that didn't tell me exactly what it was, and highlighted the fact that, oh, this job comes with this very big bonus. And being a poor college student, I was like, yes, that's what I need.
Not
Well,
knowing why it came with a big bonus.
exactly. There was a reason why it came with the
Yeah,
big
there's always a
bonus.
reason why. Okay.
The big bonus was because I was going to be dealing with chemicals, nerve agents, and things like that that were life threatening. So, yes, it came with the big bonus. After doing that for 3 years, I was in the Army for 3 years. And after initially getting all my training, getting certified, and all that stuff, I ended up getting on the list to go to Iraq for war. And at the very last minute, I mean, bags getting ready to be packed and gone, they said, oh, we don't need you right now, so you don't have to go. And that was when I said, okay, I made a mistake signing up for this. I need to do something different. But I knew I still needed the military to help me finance my education. So at the time, I knew I had some fellow college mates. They said, well, you can transfer services. And I said, no, I didn't know that. They said, well, because you went to the Army and there's such a physically advanced, the Army and Marines, you can go to either the Air Force or Navy and you won't have to repeat boot camp. Whereas if it was the opposite way around, you would. So that's what I did. So I went to a Navy recruiter, and of course they were like, yeah, we'll sign you up. And I was like, yeah, I want something where my life is not always in danger. We do know that there's a certain amount of danger as far as serving in the military, that you are putting your life on the line, but you don't want it just to be where, okay, I want to go out and do mustard agent, and I may lose an arm or not be able to have children as a result of it. So that's what I ended up doing. And my goal, like I said, my goal was to finance college and nothing more. And here I sit 30 years later as a naval officer. So I never would have imagined that I would be speaking to anyone saying that I have 30 years of service in the military.
What has it been like as a woman in the military?
It has been challenging. Being a woman, being a Black woman, and this has also happened to me in corporate as well. I am often the only female and female of color in rooms. And because I have been in the military 30 years, I'm a senior officer. So I'm always usually the only Black female woman of that rank. And a lot of times I'm the only Black person, male or female, that are, that is at that rank in a room. So it's been very challenging. I've come across different things as far as people who don't want to see you there, who don't like the fact that you are a person of color there, and just the normal things that you go through with anything in life, whether it be the military or corporate. You have those obstacles that you
Do you
have to
think
come
you
across.
face more racial discrimination or gender? Or is it hard to discern?
There's both, even though the military says that there's zero tolerance, and there is, as far as if you report it up the chain, but at the low levels and as you're going through, you have people that will voice how they feel. And, sometimes you're like, oh, okay, well, great. So they'll tell you either, oh, a woman should not be in this position, or, you know, you're not good enough because you're a person of color, or you're not smart enough. So you do have both of those.
Well, and that's interesting because very often we feel it, Trina. We get the idea that people are thinking that.
Mm-hmm.
And they may show it in subtle ways, but when they come out and say it, it's almost welcome in a
Mm-hmm.
way,
Mm-hmm.
because you know where they stand, and they're not playing you.
Right. And it's so ironic that you say that, because in this climate that we're in today, as far as civil unrest and things that have been happening, um, those are things that I've had to deal with all my life. And it's funny because me, along with, I'm pretty sure, a lot of other Black people, we have been silent, especially if you're trying to succeed in life and do things, because you're automatically branded
Yeah, you're
as, oh,
trying to
well,
play the game, right?
right, right. You're
Yeah.
trying to play in the game, and if you speak up or you say something, you're branded as the, angry Black woman or the hostile Black man. So I think just the situation that we are in today is very, very revealing for those who didn't understand what it's like to be a person of color, going through life.
Yeah. I hear what you say, and I can't, as a white woman, I can't imagine, what that feels like. The only way I can make the tiniest connection, and I don't mean to diminish your experience, is in general what it's like to be a woman, an ambitious woman who also
Mm-hmm.
has to find out what the rules of the game are, how to, do, how much do I have to compromise myself to get ahead and realize my ambition. You've had the double whammy of being an ambitious woman and being a woman of color. So, you've got it on steroids, or you've experienced it on steroids. But you know, as a woman, it's also been extremely difficult to realize your ambition and stand in that power that I know I've got value. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
let me have let me have the stage, let me have the platform to be able to share my ideas. um so what has the military taught you, that has helped you in life and in your career?
The military, the not the one thing, but the thing most that I can say my military career has brought to my life is I'm not that person who was shy and intimidated. I stand tall and I speak boldly, and I know who I am. So I stand on that. Whereas before, I would be shy and timid, I would cower. So the military has really brought me out of my shell to really stand and show people who I am. And
Mm.
I really like that. I did not see that coming, of course, as a 19-year-old enlisting in the military. But looking back, if I could recap anything throughout the 30 years, I think that would be my biggest takeaway.
And have you had instances in your career where um, that has helped you to either get out of a toxic situation or a difficult situation with a boss or manager?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and it's funny because for some reason, a few weeks ago, I wrote an article and it actually got published in Thrive Global, but I wrote an article and for some reason I intimidate people in the workspace, and I'm 5'2", 130 pounds. So I don't understand why I intimidate people, but I think it's because
Do you not understand?
I understand. I do understand, but
I
I
mean, what
don't.
do you think it is?
I think it's the fact that I am a confident Black
Mm-hmm.
woman and I'm
Mm-hmm.
successful. So that
People
intimidates
don't know
people.
how to deal with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yes, I do understand that. But then when I say I don't understand it, I don't understand it from the fact of why is that a bad thing? So in a work situation, I've had to stand up to people because I've had people say things to me and do things, and I'm like, do they really think I'm an idiot? I'm like, you're saying this to me, and they're saying it as if I don't have the common sense to know what's really going on. And I've had to say that a couple of times, um, really, do you think I'm this person? So, for instance, um, several years ago, I worked for a power company, and this manager who hired me in, who was my manager for probably the first 3 or 4 years at that company, one day he calls me in his office, and at the time we had just a Excel spreadsheet that we had to put our work hours in to get paid. There was not an actual system. And I remember putting hours in, and I guess my eyes got crossed, and I put in like personal time. The days that I had personal time, I think I put it in under like I actually worked that day. So he calls me in the office, and he's going on, and I saw where he was going, and I said, okay, are you accusing me of stealing time? He was like, well, I don't know. I said, well, first of all, I said, that was a mistake. That was just, an error of me, looking at a spreadsheet. I said, but if you check my file, I have plenty of personal time. I have no need to steal. And he goes, oh, and I had been having issues with this manager. And I said, one thing I can tell you for sure about me, I'm not a thief and I have integrity. I said, so you don't ever have to worry about me stealing time. So he was kind of shocked. He didn't come straight out and say it at the beginning, but he was beating around the bush, and I knew where he was going. So he ends the conversation and he goes, oh, okay, yeah, well, yeah, I know you're here every day, like 15, 20 minutes early. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, how does he know that? Because I've always been a person to go to work early. So I'm usually in at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. And he lets it slip, whether he meant to or not, that he pulls the records from the door. So, with the building, we had to swipe our badge
Yeah, you have to
to get
sign in. Mm-hmm.
Right. So he pulls these electronic records every day. Now, whether he was pulling them just for me or everybody, but one of the issues I had with this manager was the fact that he was a micromanager. So when he said that, I said, oh, he's like, well, yeah, I pull the reports for the door every day. And I was just like, wow, okay. So
big brother.
yeah,
Did he treat you
that
differently than other members of the team?
I had issues with him. I ended up going to HR on him. Like I said, he was my manager for like the first 3 or 4 years. I was with the company 11 years, and then he moved to another area. But I did have issues with him that I took him to HR once, just because of the way that he would talk to me. And I say he had short man syndrome because he was a short man. And again, I'm a strong Black female, and I think he really had a problem with that. But then even after he changed and went to another department, he was still trying to give me orders and tell me what to do. And it got so bad that I finally went to HR and I said, look, okay, I had this issue with him before. Now he's not even my manager and I'm still having these issues with him. So HR actually had to go to him and tell him, do not talk to me in any shape, form, or fashion, because he was just that bad.
Wow.
And,
I'm happy to hear that HR did something, quite
yeah.
honestly.
And
Yeah.
it was surprising, but they did. And it's funny because I ended up talking to a guy, a white male, who, and he and I were hired like the same week or whatever. And we were just comparing notes. And this guy told me that one day he was in with this manager and he threw a stack of papers at his face. And I go, what? And he goes, yeah. And I was like, okay, well, what is his problem? So I don't know what his issue was, but those are the things I encounter. And I just popped in my head, but that same manager is funny. So I remember interviewing, and he's going through my resume, and he goes, oh, well, I need to see if this university is accredited. And I'm looking at him like, really? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm going, does he ask everybody that? Because why wouldn't the university I go to, that I went to, not be accredited? He goes, yeah, I have to ask if, see if this is accredited before we can hire you. And I was thinking to myself, and I've always been the person, because I've been so driven. I've always been the type of person that I don't automatically say, okay, they're doing this to me because I'm Black. But then some things are just so
Well, that's
overt.
pretty obvious, though,
Yeah,
Trina.
right. Some
Yeah.
things are just so overt, and you just can't dismiss it. So,
Yeah.
and at the time I just said, okay, he goes, because I've never heard of this. And I'm thinking, just because you don't hear of something doesn't mean that it's not valid. It doesn't exist. So to show you how things work, I get hired, whatever. Years later, a woman who had been with the company for a lot longer than I am, she was an older lady. She ends up coming to the department where I work, actually on my team when we worked together. And we got to talking, and she actually told me, because at the time she worked in HR, and she told me how he came to her and asked her to like do a check to see if this university was valid. And she looked at him and she said, yes, it's valid. I went there. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, that was great. And she said, yeah, she said he couldn't do anything but like stutter and walk away. And I was like, I can't believe I said, I know he said that to me in the interview. I said, but I can't be. She said, yeah, he came to me and wanted me to validate that it was a real university.
So,
So,
Trina, it sounds like you have made your journey has really tremendously influenced your life and career now. Uh, you could have been knocked down by your childhood and all the experiences there, but you really rose above all of that, and have turned it around, where you obviously are a very badass, powerful woman. Was there one incident? Was there something that triggered you, or was it just an ongoing determination that, the more abuse you took at home, the more you were determined to get out of it?
it was a life's culmination, but I remember when I hit 40, it was like something sparked in me, and I said, this is it. Because I looked at myself and I was like, okay, yeah, I am this badass person. This is what I am. This is what I bring to the table, even though I discounted myself and I had other people to devalue me. I was like, this is no more. And what got me to that point was, I ended up, at the time, I had just come back from being deployed for the war. So I was gone for 2 years. My children at the time were 4 and 5 years old when I got back. So I got back. I ended up going through a divorce. I ended up getting a new job and moving across country to where I am actually today, Texas. And the job I had, I thought was, okay, this is going to be a new start for us. This is going to be a new start. It was with a very well-known, prestigious agency. And I thought, okay, this is like my third career, and this is where I'm going to call it quits. I'm going to go through here, get my pension, and I'm done. And the day that I walked in the door, I knew I had made the wrong decision. It was the culture and the people there were not what I expected. I sat at my desk one day and just started to cry because I was like, what have I done?
Mm.
I had a good job that I had for 11 years and I was, halfway to a pension. I left, I moved my kids across country and they were having a hard time adjusting to the move and the divorce. And I was like, what have I done? And people were just attacking me from all ends. And again, this is where that being, people being intimidated and threatened by me. I had uh, supervisors who were trying to get me fired, who were saying, oh, you underperform. And I'm thinking, I have never underperformed in my life.
Mm.
You underperform, your work is subpar, and I was just going, oh my God. So, and it was at that time after going through such hell on this job. And when I say hell, I mean, I would have panic attacks driving to work. I would have to pull over or just kind of talk myself into calming down to continue on. One morning, I remember brushing my teeth and I broke the toothbrush in half. That's how hard I was
Oh.
brushing my teeth.
Mm.
And I didn't, and I was so amazed. I didn't realize it until the toothbrush snapped and I went, oh my God. And I guess I was just, thinking about what I had to go through and everything. And I guess I was just going crazy.
Yeah, holding all that stress inside.
Yeah. And that, in the toothbrush thing, I was like, okay, this is it. This is crazy. I said, no more. I'm not going to let a job define me. I'm not going to let a man define me because it's so many things that happened. I had that job. Then I ended up getting mixed up with this guy who was like a total narcissist. Talk about trying to break me down. He tried to destroy me at every angle. I was at a point where I was starting to kind of heal myself from everything in the past and the childhood. And I just remember thinking, okay, I'm going to be vulnerable with this person. I'm going to tell him some things like, okay, here's my scars. Here's some of my mistakes. Here's my other thing. And he like latched onto that and would condemn me. And I
Use it
asked him one
against
day,
you.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
asked him one day, I said, how dare you try to condemn me for something that I shared with you at a time that I didn't even know you existed. I mean, these are things from my past. It wasn't like something that you even witnessed me doing. And he was so crazy. I mean, and I think, and no, I don't think he did. He did this because he was projecting his crap. Because when I started to investigate and learn about him, he had done some things that I was like, oh my God. I was like, really? I met him in the Navy. Well, he was a disgraced Navy pilot that basically they just let him hang out until he left. Nobody thought highly of him. So I was like, wow, here's this person here, and he's trying to make me feel bad about myself. So with that and this job, I said, okay, I'm done. I said, this is
So
the
it was
last time.
recognizing that you had much more to give. You were putting yourself in situations where you were diminishing yourself.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And I was being stressed over it. I fell into depression. I had anxiety. And what really made me the most angry was the fact that I was not showing up for my children like I
Mm-hmm.
had been showing up and like I knew I could and what they deserved from me. And I said, no, this is it. This is the final straw. Not a man, not a job. None of this will ever make me, one, devalue myself and
So
make me
what did you
less.
do then?
I started working on my inner self. I started back praying and being back and getting my spirituality where I needed. I sought therapy. I went to that and just started really doing self work, self improvement, looking at myself. And it took a while because none of us want to say that we're messed up. We all want to
Mm-hmm.
think that we're okay and our lives are okay, but I really had to start reflecting within myself and saying, okay, this is a pattern. Why am I in this pattern? What have you been doing? The reason why you're ending up in these places.
Yeah, I mean, it took such strength to disconnect from your abusive mom in childhood that sometimes, we just need to do what we need to do. And it's not the time to say, well, how does this affecting me? And, doing some of that inner work. So, very often, I think it's common that we just barrel through
Mm-hmm.
to do what we need to do. And then all of a sudden we realize that, wow, this has scarred me in some ways, but I'm not going to let it hold me back. How does all of this now inform the work that you're doing currently?
Now I am very intentional, of course, as far as personal relationships, as far as how I show up in my life for me and my children. But I'm starting to see that I think, and I approach things very differently. I look at it as, is this thing going to feed me or is it going to deplete me? And I mean that with things that I do, clients, friends, family, all alike. I've had a friend that I've had to distance myself from because she, was depleting me. I have a brother that I don't have any contact with because he's just another version of my mother. So just coming to that realization, and because my goal in life is just to have peace. And I'm so much happier with when I have peace of mind. And I don't know about you, but your mind is everything. If you let someone, stress you out and get in your mind, and these people, like the people on this job and this supervisor I had who, when I, broke my toothbrush, this person, that's what they thrived on. They would tell people how, oh, people are scared of me. They don't like me. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, really, that's your legacy that you want to leave. And I thought about it. I said, you know what? She has done this to me, and her boss has allowed it and knew it, and they were all happy with it. But she's going to move on and do this to someone else. And I may be dead and gone or in a crazy house, and she's not going to care anything about me.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm done. I'm done with people devaluing me. I'm done with letting people feel stressful. So now I live on intention. I look at how things feed me or deplete me. And I look at it the same way with clients. All money is not good money. If it's not a client that we have a connection and we fit with one another, I don't deal with them. And I don't care how much money that you're willing to give me. I don't care if I say, okay, I want $1 million. You're like, okay, I won't do it because my peace of mind is more important than anything.
So now you have your own company. You've become an entrepreneur.
Yes.
Yeah. And the name of your company is?
It's Trina Martin Technology Consulting.
There you go. And what type of consulting do you do?
I work with small and medium-sized businesses to help them use technology solutions to integrate with their business operations so that they can stay connected to their distant clients, customers, and employees. So the fact that we're in a pandemic now and people have had to scramble and learn technologies that they never thought they would have to use, I'm that person that will go in and help them with that.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that you wrote a book.
I did. The book is called From a Mess to Amazing, 7 Steps to
I love it.
Create.
From a Mess to Amazing. And is
Yes,
it
7
on
Steps.
Amazon?
It is. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and it released in January. I was planning on doing a book signing tour, but of course, the
Yeah.
pandemic hit. So this is my virtual book tour, but it's half memoir, half personal development, and it basically is talking about me going to my, badassery, if you want to put it that way. And I think anyone who is feeling like I have felt, and that was one of the reasons why I wrote the book, if they're feeling at a point where they're helpless or hopeless, or they feel that they're in a cycle and they can't get out, I think the book really be something that they can read and get some inspiration from. It's an easy read. It's not very long, so it's not one of these books you pick up and it's 500 pages, but I think you'll be very inspired by it.
Well, you're too young for that. So, when you reach 100, maybe the book will be 500 pages. Trina, how can my listeners find out more about you, your services, your book?
Well, my website is www.trinalmartin.com. That's my website, and it's actually I'm redeveloping, and I have a new one in the works that's going to really hone and show all of my services that I have now. But you can connect with me directly through LinkedIn. That's my primary platform if you have some direct questions for me. I also have a podcast called Trina Talk that's on iTunes and Google Play, everywhere. That is also personal development, inspiration, and I talk to business leaders and entrepreneurs and everybody around the world to also inspire you and motivate you to continue on with whatever it is that you want to complete in your life.
Well, thank you, Trina, so much for sharing your story, because I know it's going to inspire and motivate a lot of my listeners to take a good hard look at where they are and, gather that courage to overcome whatever obstacles they have. So thank you so much for sharing your story and being on the podcast today.
Thank you, Bonnie, for having me. I really, really respect your time and your platform, and I really appreciate you sitting down with me.
And thanks, everyone, for listening today. If you're stuck in your career and tired of playing small, check out my website, bonniemarcusleadership.com, for information and resources on how to move your career forward. Thank you for listening.